Deputy Labor Leader Richard Marles, thank you for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure, Annalise.
Did you enjoy the ball?
I did enjoy the ball. It's really the highlight of the Canberra calendar, the parliamentary calendar, and it was a fantastic night. I love the theme of the Pacific Stepper.
Why did you love the theme?
Well, it says to me that thinking about the Pacific has suddenly become mainstream. It has to have become if it is the theme of the midwinter ball. So it means the press gallery is absolutely onto what is a very important issue.
There you go. That's a real Canberra bubble insight. So.
Indeed.
So on to topics of the day. The Prime Minister's jetting off to the US at the moment. Hugely significant trip for Australia. What are you hoping he achieves while he's over there?
Well, you're right. It's a really significant trip, which comes at a very important moment, very sensitive in terms of really the strategic landscape that Australia faces. I mean, you think about the looming trade tensions between China and America. This is very fundamental to Australia's economic outlook, and so it's really important that Scott Morrison is talking to the President in the context of the alliance and a reaffirmation of the alliance and its importance, but talking to him about how essential it is for Australia that we have an outward-looking trading America. And that's what Scott Morrison needs to be passing on to President Trump. I've got no doubt he'll enjoy catching up with his mate and there'll be lots of happy snaps, but at the end of the day, Scott Morrison is going to be judged on the outcomes that he brings home.
Now, there's some concern about our role in the trade war between China and the US, the fact we're getting caught in the middle a fair bit. And you've been concerned about some comments made by Michael Sukkar where he said, when two big gorillas, so to speak, are placing tariffs on each other's goods, you don't need to be a Rhodes Scholar to work out there are going to be great opportunities for you. What do you make of that comment?
Well, it's so short-sighted. I mean, what you have there is a person involved in trade who is literally looking at this week and the next, when our economy is about the next decade and the one after that. And trade tensions between China and America is inevitably bad for Australia. The idea that you would see this as a good thing to exploit completely gets it wrong when viewed over the long term. And I'll tell you what, if that is the advice going into Scott Morrison as he heads off to Washington, D.C., we should all be worried. It's absolutely essential that the Prime Minister is saying to the President that we need an outward-looking trading America. And I think, the world looks a lot rosier from where we sit, where you have cooperation between America and China and an open global trading system.
Now, we're going to learn about some important economic results this morning, including their budget outcome. The anticipation is that it will at least be a balanced budget, if not pushing into surplus territory. That's a lot better than it would have been under Labor if you had come in.
Well, I don't accept that, but I mean, there are a few points to make here. Firstly, where the government has got its fiscal position to, firstly, is off the back of the NDIS. I mean, the idea that the NDIS as a demand-driven system is not having demand driving it is frankly offensive. All of us as MPs have people coming into our offices seeking to use the NDIS, finding it difficult to work with, and that is actually, I think, more than anything, an explanation of why there is an underspend in that area. But that is the major reason why the fiscal position has improved and why the government has charted a pathway to surplus. But there have also been factors beyond this government's control. I mean, if you look at the mine disaster in Brazil, which has given rise to an increase in iron ore prices, that's been very beneficial for our economy. That's obviously good from an Australian point of view, bad from Brazil's point of view, but whatever it is not the work of this government. We've got the dollar where it's at. I mean, these are not factors that the government have put in play. And actually, at the end of the day, we have an economy which is growing very slowly. And that's where we need to see a plan from the government about how they're going to get growth going, and we haven't got one.
Isn't it the case, though, that these are factors that, even if they are outside of the government's control, that they have correctly anticipated and planned for? If they're going to be in a balanced budget? Well,
they didn't plan for them. I mean, there is no sense in any of the budget papers expecting that. I mean, the reason why, if there is a better than expected result, it is because of these factors, which obviously they didn't see, but they couldn't have seen. But let's come back to the fact that the pathway to surplus has been achieved off the back of an underspend in the NDIS. I mean, that is the fundamental point here. And that is a disgrace. And ultimately, in terms of our economy, what we really need to see is economic growth, and that's what we're not seeing and what this government does not have a plan for.
And just finally, there's going to be the legislation reintroduced today about tougher laws for dual citizens who are suspected of or have committed a terror offence. Does Labor support this?
Well, we'll have a look at it, is the answer to that question. We need to see what the legislation provides, and ultimately we need to get briefings from the agencies, which we'll do, to understand what the threats are that they perceive and why they see these changes in the laws as necessary to deal with those threats, and we'll go through that process. But what you know from us is that we have been very robust indeed in relation to national security. We have worked with the government in a bipartisan way over the last 7 years during the Abbott-Turnbull-Morrison government. We have worked with the government on changing legislation to make it better, but ultimately, in working with them in a bipartisan way, we've got more robust, more tougher laws in relation to national security, and that's the form that we'll bring to this process.
These are laws that essentially already exist. It's just an extension of them to make it a wider threshold. So you do support the current laws as they are?
Look, the changes of that kind are not a small thing to do. Now, they may be necessary, but we want to go through the process of understanding this. And what you do here is you get briefings from the agencies, you get them telling you what they see as being the threats out there, and that is all done in a very confidential space, which obviously can't be in the public domain. And off the back of their threat assessments, they then explain why they think a change in the law is necessary to deal with it and how they think those laws would improve the threat assessment. Now, that's the process that we need to go through, and we will go through it. But the point I'm really making is the form we take into that is as a party which has been very strong in relation to national security, which has been completely willing to work with the government in a bipartisan way to make our laws stronger and better, and that's what we'll do this time as well.
Don't you think the Neil Prakash case kind of illustrates just how ineffective these laws can be when he was stripped of his citizenship and we didn't even know if he was actually Fijian, and then there was questions about whether you can strip someone of citizenship if they don't have a second one that's verified? Really complicated international law.
Yeah, sure, and it is complicated, and this, I guess, the tool of seeking to strip dual citizens of their citizenship is relatively new. And it's one that we need to watch evolve. We've supported the idea of this as a tool to be used. And again, we did that because we sat down with the agencies, had them take us through what they saw as the threats and why they thought this would be a useful tool to use. So we understood that and we've worked with them on it. This, as you say, is an extension. But we actually need to see exactly how that's framed in the legislation. That's the first step. Get the briefings from the agencies and work out our position. But we will bring to this process the form of a party which has been very strong on national security and is utterly willing to work with the government to make our laws stronger.
Fair enough. Richard Marles, thank you for your time.
Thank you.